the dialogue, there was a line, sometimes you gotta, what do you say? Sometimes you gotta kiss some frogs to get your prince. I was like, geez, are you serious? Jared Leto calls Denzel the Big Dick Tracy. And then there was one line that I lost. I was like, I lost it. I was like, are you serious? Denzel grabs Jared Leto and he's like, you're as hard as Chinese arithmetic. I was like, who talks like this? It was ridiculous. I was like, there's a lot of lines like that, and especially from Rami Malek. It comes off as like I'm pretending to be a cop. Nicholas Holt and Aidan Gillen, they play the guys that are going after them. They were probably the main positive of this. Like they are they're able to kill people in such a, well, early on at least, such a subtle way, I guess. Like they were kind of entertaining. Like the idea that they always seem to have like costumes to like blend into places and get into places. You never really find out too much about them. You do find out who they work for, and that was quite a shock when he shows up. It's somebody quite prominent, and I don't know why he was in this. It was almost like, hey, this script is terrible. Who can we get now? I mean, it's essentially a glorified cameo, but even he was all right when he shows up. But yeah, they're like savage, and like when you're able to kill a family and blow up their house, I think there was a baby in there too, and then just walk off like it was nothing, and just like get in your car as you blow it up and just casually have conversation. I mean, you would think that they would like talking about, oh man, how was your day today? Like it's yeah, that's when you have like no soul. That's probably about it. Negatives, pretty much everything else. Um, it's poorly written for the most part. The world building is really bad. Like when they're little girls, there's this big emphasis on, oh, she's telling her daughter, oh, I don't want you to grow up like I did. And it's like, I saw you when you were little girls. There was nothing going on. Like you would never know that the miscreants even existed in those scenes because there's not that many miscreants really in this movie, and you don't see them until after that stuff. So you have that. Melissa McCarthy and Octavia Spencer, they have no chemistry at all. By the way, like if you have a world where it's just supervillains running around, you think that it would be like like the place would be like demolished on a regular basis, right? Like you think it would look like when the androids took over in Dragon Ball Z. Like you would think that it would look like that, but no. Like they just kind of, you see them like robbing a drugs like a liquor store. Like it's nothing. Like the whole plan that the villain has is lame. It's predictable as shit. Like as soon as you see them, you're like, okay. And the characters themselves don't really have much character. Like she forms a group after a while, with a baby and stuff like that. And another thing, there's a point in this movie where they just straight up ape that shit from the penguins from Madagascar. I saw that. I can't be the only one who thought that. But they don't really have much character. They're completely forgettable. I don't remember their names. Not even really going to mention them here. But yeah, the boy, I remember the captain or whatever that's also a cook. He was annoying, pop locking his way through the whole movie and kind of being, annoying but also bland. And something that really threw me off, I don't know why the birds are rapping. You have those, you have the recognizable names for the voice actors, you have the recognizable songs that don't really even fit in this movie or in the scenes that they're in. That normal, like, bad kids movie trash. Um, but there's a part where they're in a fish market and it's a bunch of dead fish that will eventually be prepared into food. And I'm like, so does that mean that the food would be cartoon? Any food that's made from animals, which are cartoons in this, would be a cartoon. Like a burger, the meat would be a cartoon burger. Like would it somehow between the killing process and I guess the preparing and cooking process, it goes from being a cartoon into regular food? I shouldn't be thinking about that in this movie, but this movie is it's barely written. There's barely anything really going on. Starts to like break, and then because also there's this thing where people get injured and they get healed like right away. So somebody's arms are like breaking in things, and because they heal so quickly, it heals, but it heals in the way that it broke. So it was healing wrong, right? So there's some clever stuff like that in here, which is actually kind of frustrating because I feel like this movie would almost be good or potentially better if it was made by someone else. So M. Night Shyamalan, is out of his fucking mind. This movie is crazy. I was sitting there and I was like, what the fuck? There's one scene where somebody gets pregnant and the pregnancy, some things go crazy with the pregnancy. One person's losing their mind to the point where they're like randomly attacking the other people with a knife. It's insane. I don't. It's pretty obvious. You could probably tell what's really going on here based on what happened to the kids, but I don't know if I really want to say or not. I really did start laughing at it. Like people will start going crazy and screaming, or Joe dude will try to cut somebody, or or the lady that was having seizures will start having seizures, but she would stop for a second and then start having a seizure again and start foaming from the mouth. And it was so obvious that it was like over the top just acting. It didn't really feel like it was an actual character, like actually having a legitimate seizure. So that was making me laugh. I mean, it's one of it kind of came off as a little bit of like The Happening, where he goes too far with it to the point where it's ridiculous. So the formula of the MCU, I get it, is successful, but it's getting to the point where it's a little bit stale. Like the comedy is very forced. The movie feels like it has to stop dead for comedy. Aquafina's character feels like she's out of place because she's doing almost like sitcom level comedy. She's the same character in pretty much everything I see her in. I liked her in Crazy Rich Asians, but with this and Ryan the Last Dragon, it feels like she's just the same character, and her comedy just doesn't really work all that well in these movies for me. There's another character, and I was immediately pissed off when I saw him. And I'm gonna actually spoil this. Sir Ben Kingsley comes back as the fake Mandarin, right? They're finally doing the Mandarin somewhat justice, and they decide to bring his ass back in here. A lot of people don't understand that it's more than just changing the comic books for that character. It's because it was a just really lame and cringy scene that was just awful, and it's just them forcing bad comedy into their movies. Not all these movies have to be comedies. The movie really does stop dead for him to do this little comedy bit with him and this creature and all these other things. And he's more than just a cameo. Like there's other MCU characters that are most definitely just a cameo, right? But not him. He's a full-on character, and the audience was laughing, so I'll give it that. But I was not. There is no real plot to this. Like an hour in, I was like, has anything really happened? And the answer would be probably no. He's teaching him how to do things. He runs away from a CGI lion that looks terrible for a little bit, and he's trying to learn how to walk. He's trying to do his own thing. He falls in love with his barber, and so there's that thing that's kind of harkening back to some stuff in the first movie. They make plenty of references to the stuff in the first movie because they have nothing going on in this movie. They have multiple song numbers that are meaningless and mean nothing. There's a bunch of cameos. What's his name? Trevor Noah from The Daily Show. He's like this newscaster or whatever in Zamunda. Speaking of Zamunda, I saw the trivia on Amazon that all the Zamunda scenes were shot at Rick Ross's house or on his property, which makes sense because he's also in the movie. It feels like it's almost like it would be like a 40-minute to an hour spin-off episode of like a show or something, because there really is not much going on here. Tracy Morgan's in it. He's never funny. Most of these jokes fall flat. I don't care really what happens to the characters because there are no stakes in this movie at all, like to where characters will get shot at. Like I saw Tyrese just blatantly get shot at and nothing happens. Like it, it's bad when like they're putting it in the dialogue now that these characters do all these things and they never get a scratch.
Those are bullet holes from 14 dudes trying to take my head clean off his shoulders. We've taken out cars, trains, tanks. I'm not going to even mention the submarine.
And yet we're still here.
I mean, it's to the point where, especially when the characters are making comments about, or at least one of them, I keep wondering, like, why are you guys even running away from things, right? Explosions go off next to them and nothing happens. There's a point where Tyrese seems like he might be dead. Of course he's not. There's a point where Vin Diesel falls in some water, has a whole little weird dream sequence thing going on, where he goes through multiple parts of his life, and of course he's not going to drown. Like, come on. Come on. And of course he's completely fine. He jumps out of a truck at some point last minute before it explodes. Of course he's fine. I don't know why they try to even pretend like there's any stakes or tension in this in the moment, because there isn't any. Right? So At a certain point, I've seen cars pile up on each other and smash into each other enough in these movies. At a certain point, like even the spectacle of it, even the utter craziness of it, other than the magnets, like you know, and even the magnets at a certain point, it gets old. Your brain has to turn on at some point, right? John Cena does not look like Vin Diesel. These characters are clearly not related to one another. They have these flashbacks where even the flashback characters, they don't look like each other. They don't even look like Vin Diesel and John Cena. As far as issues, Will Smith, this accent, right? And I think it's pretty accurate from what I know, but yeah, it still kind of feels like a caricature. All right, oh, we gotta keep these kids off these streets, and it definitely didn't fully work.
Now, I understand you got to do your job, even if some crazy-ass neighbor do call talking foolishness. And I don't even mind you saying we hard on these kids. You know why? Because we are. That's our job, to keep them off these streets.
Richard is kind of an asshole. Oh, these kids, oh. We just wanted to know what you said. It being, was it 2.5 hours? Like, that's one thing. But, you know, and I was entertained. But there were definitely moments where it was dragging, right? There's things that characters have to reveal to each other. We gotta wait for the right moment to reveal it. You know, it's a lot. And I was thinking, okay, I'm still into this, but can we hurry up and like get to something? Padded may not be the right word, but it feels like they're really like drawing it out as long as possible. It doesn't not necessarily padding to where it's unnecessary, but to where it'll be necessary, but it's drawn out for way longer than it probably needed to be. This accent from this villain in this movie, completely terrible. It is so bad, it's laughably bad.
Long, painful wait to see the river again. The tears of the moon can break your curse, free you from this jungle. You want what I need.
The thing that I really wanted to talk about being laughable that goes along with the fake nature of this is that every animal in it, especially one animal in particular, is extremely fake. I mean, the CGI is so bad. Disney, you have all this money, you have all these resources. There is no way that you should put out a movie with CGI this bad. I don't understand. I mean, there's a bird cage, the birds look bad, you see some monkeys for a little bit, because there's kind of some development, kind of with Emily Blunt's character, where she wants to free animals from cages, never comes back again after that. Those monkeys, I mean, that's another thing this movie was kind of reminding me of a little bit, was an Indiana Jones movie. But speaking of it, Indiana Jones, those monkeys feel like they came right into this movie from Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I mean, they looked so fake. But those aside, the leopard is throughout this entire movie. He's not just in one scene and that's it. He's in the whole movie in different parts. I mean, he's not always around, but he's always like kind of on the boat. And that leopard looks so bad. Like it's like you guys have no shame. All the, like I said, money and resources, and this is what you give me? I mean, he's got to look better than this. I mean, it's embarrassing. It really is embarrassing. I don't understand how this even becomes a thing. I guess we can start off with the soundtrack. I mean, the soundtrack is so overbearing. I mean, she's running away from some cops when she's a kid, and it's like, watch the dog, watch the dog. I was like, okay, I don't know what song this is, but you know, there's a couple of songs that have to do with dogs in this, and it's almost like this property has something to do with dogs. I don't know. It was a theme I was picking up on. It is endless. Sympathy for the Devil, Come Together. There's a different version of that from the Beatles. There's a Car Wash for no reason. I mean, I think this is the first time I've ever really taken note of this. Maybe it's in other movies. Maybe I just didn't really pay attention to it in other movies. But it was like every other scene there was a song. Like it was ridiculous. It felt kind of cheap. It felt like you were trying to use the songs to get certain things across rather than actually having the scene play out. Like, it was so ridiculous to me. It was just endless. It was over and over and over again. They really padded out that soundtrack, and it was overbearing. It was either it was too much, or it was like, okay, you're just pulling some, you know, recognizable song out. It was like Suicide Squad almost. There's no structure to it. It just kind of feels messy. Like it's all over the place, especially like the first act. Like it's kind of it really is just constantly hopping not only locations but like time periods. There's certain parts where like there's like one scene that they go to another time period or show another time period for like something that takes like 2 minutes and then just goes to another time period. Like you're just constantly seeing the text telling you it's 800 AD or whatever, present day or whatever. It's so messy and all over the place structure wise that it really hurts the movie when it comes to character development. Or I mean, these characters, they feel like they just kind of just were like picked from a lineup just randomly, like, hey, I'll take you. There's no chemistry between them. Some of them have a little romance or whatever. There's no chemistry. It reminded me of Fant Four Stick, where it's like, you guys have no chemistry whatsoever, right? They throw in like family a couple times, like it's Fast and Furious. It's like, you can say family all you want to. You feel like a bunch of random people just sitting around the table and eating, right? Like, or doing whatever you're doing, or walking in the desert. You guys don't feel like a family. You barely feel like a group. At the point where Kong is, apparently he's learned sign language, and he's doing sign language with the little girl because I think she's deaf. How did King Kong know sign language? I was like, okay, all right, that's stupid, but whatever, we keep moving. And as it keeps going, I'm like, wait, what? And then it gets to a point where I just had to pause the movie, and I was crying laughing. At the point where a character, and shout out to these actors, I didn't even say, these actors are pretty good with some of the stuff that they have to say. But with a character comes into a room and dramatically has to say, they turned the skull into a living supercomputer. A skull! I mean, it just kept upping the ante. It's like sign language. Okay, sit there to get a power source. It's like, oh, okay, well, whatever. But then when it's like, there's a giant skull that's a supercomputer, it's like, okay, this is fucking ridiculous. But there's also a part where they go to the wrong house for some reason. It's like, you've gone to this house multiple times now. You went to the wrong house? Okay. The kid thinks that they're trying to kidnap him. And that's the reason why he's setting up all these traps. Because obviously, if he just thought that they just wanted the doll, he would just give them the doll. Like, obviously, he wouldn't set up all these traps and all that. Because they're not trying to steal from anything. They're not trying to take, they're only trying to take something that's theirs anyway. Right? So they're getting set on fire and having things thrown at them. He puts on a VR headset on the Jeff character, Rob Delaney. He puts a VR headset and he's moving around. Oh no, where am I? Where am I? You can't feel that you have a VR headset on. This movie is fucking so stupid. The Taskmaster, there's a reveal with Taskmaster that I thought was really lame. You know, there's something in this movie. Well, first of all, it doesn't have any stakes at all within the actual movie. Like, there's a scene where Black Widow and her sister are in a car and it's getting thrown around and all this other stuff, a tank and everything, and nothing happens other than one of them has a cut on their arm. It's like, that's nothing, really. That means nothing to me. So there's that. And then there's the the thing where multiple times a character is believed to be dead, but then they're revealed to still be alive. That kept being kind of annoying to me. And then there's something with the main guy at the end where there's something that keeps Black Widow from doing anything to him. And I thought that was so silly. I thought that was so stupid. I started laughing. I really did. How can you just go along with this? At a certain point, this is just so stupid and poorly written. You have to call it out. You call it out with everything else. You have to call it out with this. They don't even care anymore. This movie was making me laugh. Like, the dialogue is so bad in certain parts. There's like references to Star Wars out of nowhere.
I want guns. I want wheels. Freaking X-Wing fighters. I don't care. The Millennium Falcon, Chewbacca, if you can get a hold of him. One is no object. Go. Go!
At first, I laughed at that, but then the reference goes on for like 5 minutes. Like, no, I'm Han Solo. Oh, no, you're actually Master Yoda because you're a puppet. It's like, what?
No, I'm more of a Han Solo.
No. You're Yoda.
Yoda?
Mm-hmm. Yoda's a puppet. With someone's hand up his ass.
Charlize Theron is in this movie for like no reason up until like the very end, and then the thing that they did with her at the very end was also pretty bullshit. But she's there with a bad haircut, and she's mostly just in a glass box talking shit, and the dialogue's bad. I gotta give some credit to her because with dialogue like this, she really commits, right? I would have, it would have been impossible for me to give these lines of dialogue, especially with those Star Wars references, with a straight face, and somehow she pulls it off. This movie just mainly was either silly because you have the thoughts and like they're different colors and they're just always around them, like some weird fart cloud around them, or it's annoying because the characters are just the characters are just kind of saying things like so you can hear their thoughts, so it's a lot of like randomness just kind of being said out loud. Like she says, "My name is Viola," and he's like, "Viola, Viola, Viola, Viola." A lot of his thoughts are just to like simp for her, really. Oh, I don't want her to leave. Oh, blonde, she's blonde, blonde hair, blonde hair. Blonde wig is what he meant. Blonde hair, Viola, Viola, Viola. Oh, she's pretty, she's pretty, she's pretty. It's just, it gets so annoying after a while. Probably the main issue for me is, I mean, other than the story, just and the characters not really working, is probably the pacing. Man, it is moving slow. Like, he has so many visions about Arrakis, and especially about Zendaya's character. I don't remember that happening that much in the original movie, but it is endless. I was like, by the time they meet her, I was like, man, if I see one more goddamn vision of her, I'm gonna go crazy. I mean, I was like, man, like, it feels like a lot of this, especially after seeing the other one, it feels like the same movie only stretched. I mean, this movie feels longer than the Snyder Cut. I mean, this is 2.5 hours. That was 4, and this feels longer. I mean, it feels like they're just moving so slow. I get that you want to develop things, but a lot of this feels like it could have been tightened up or just completely left out. But I guess you want to be as faithful as possible, but it just makes the movie kind of boring in parts. So I guess that's enough positives. Negatives, there's still quite a bit of like stupid stuff in here, but my main issue is that it's 4 hours long. It feels like it's the same movie, only stretched to a ridiculous degree. Like you have the perfect example, like you have Batman Bruce Wayne going to meet Aquaman. He has to, you have to see the whole journey of him getting there, then he has to look down at the place, then he has to go down there, talk to the guy, Aquaman's pretending not to be Aquaman. Aquaman puts him up at the wall. You get to the full thing of them walking down the path or whatever, then he slowly takes off his shirt and gets into the water and slowly goes away. And then Batman walks away, and then you have these villagers that are just there to sing at the water when Aquaman is already gone. It's a lot of fat that needed to be trimmed down, and that's why this movie and most movies are not 4 hours long. This movie is nothing. It's nothing. There's no writing to this. There's barely a plot to this. Eddie and Venom, people like their back and forth in the first movie, so they said, let's just do that again. Let's just have them bicker and banter and have hijinks and throw things around the apartment. Let's just do that for almost the entire movie. And then eventually they split up. Venom's sad, and then, they get back together at some point. Like, there's nothing to this movie. Cletus Cassidy feels like he's just any other villain, right? He's a popular villain in, the Spider-Man lore, but we're not going by the Spider-Man lore. Like, this is not Venom from Spider-Man that I've ever seen, at least. Right, this is a fucking romantic comedy between those two, where they're just constantly bickering over and over again until they finally get back together. All the exposition with him feels like it's just like, it feels like it's just thrown in there so we know something about him. He has this girlfriend or whatever, so he can have some kind of connection. But really, it would have been better without her anyway. But Jada Pinkett Smith comes back. I'm not sure what the name of that character was. There we go, as Niobe, as the character from the other movies. I don't think she was in the first one. She was in like the sequels. And obviously she's older now. Some time has gone past. And she has the worst old woman makeup on. But not only that, she feels like she has to talk like this with every line of dialogue as she's walking across and talking to Jessica Henwick and all that. It is so bad. It is laughable. It's embarrassing because it feels like she has to play old, which she's bad at. The performance is terrible. But then also she has that orange bullshit just caked on her face so she can barely kind of move when she talks. It's so bad. It's like she shouldn't be seen in public for a couple months based on the embarrassment. It really is that bad. So he reveals it finally. Oh, by the way, these parents were going to use the money that they'd set aside to pay for his college tuition. So it had gone that far, and he was perfectly fine with that, by the way. But after they start getting hate, he finally reveals to them that it was fake. And he just starts singing just right after. That's such a weird place for a song to happen. The words fail, words fail. I thought that was ridiculous. I thought that was so funny. But the real problem is that when he finally does reveal to the world pretty much that it was all fake, you don't get to see him get hate on social media. You don't get to see, they would destroy this kid. His reputation would be shot. He would be 40 years old still hearing about this. But they kind of just move along, right? Like the most you see is he's finally starting to read books that Connor likes and stuff like that to get to know him. The most that he gets from this is that people kind of just like look at him all mad in the lunchroom. It's almost like they had the script for another movie just sitting on a shelf somewhere, and they decided to make it like some home invasion movie, some action movie, and they decided to make it a Don't Breathe sequel, even though it has nothing to do with Don't Breathe at all. And they're like, well, we'll just make him blind. We'll throw the blind guy in there, and we'll make it work because he did kidnap that other girl. So I guess he'll take this one too. It doesn't really feel like a sequel. At best, it feels like a direct-to-DVD sequel. But if we're talking about the real issue here, it's the ending and the reveal. It is so fucking bad. It is monumentally bad. Like, I can't imagine this movie is getting good reviews just from this. This is epically bad. So a character turns out to be, first of all, there's no real lead into this character being the person that's behind this. There's no real lead in for it. It just kind of happens. Doesn't really make much sense. They don't really try to make it make sense. This is based on a book, so I'm guessing they're just following the book, but they could have wrote it in a better way than this. And the character comes in and just chews the scenery up. I mean, this actor is not good, all right? And this is the worst of it. The worst acting in the movie, easily. But it also has this insane final confrontation that I was laughing the entire time during the whole thing. I mean, it was just so funny to me. I could not believe that it was just this insane. Like, somebody gets stabbed in their cheek and all this. It is crazy. It really is crazy, especially after coming off of that just awful reveal. You're supposed to leave little breadcrumbs. You're supposed to make it make sense. It feels like they just went, all right, you did it. It's bad. I'm telling you, maybe people caught on to it beforehand. I didn't, and I was paying attention. I was trying to figure out, who might be doing this or what might be really going on, and I couldn't see it coming because it feels like it's out of left field for me.
You will do.
Do for what?
Yeah, do for what?
Do for what?
Do for what?
Do for what? Whoa! Where's my tail? I can't balance without my tail!
And most of the jokes in this are lame, especially from James Corden. My God. I mean, those mice don't really do much in the movie anyway, but look like terrible CG, like really awful. Like, Stuart Little looks better than them. But anyway, current year CG is not looking good looking at this. But they don't really do anything but hang out in her little room or whatever, and then eventually they get turned into the people. And then it's nothing but shtick. Woo! They're doing it. Oh, look at this. We can clap. Oh, hey, I just went to pee. We should go do it again. Our tail's in the front. It's just lame. It's lame. All this writing is lame. Everybody, like the acting, like it's for the most part decent. Even Camila Cabello, but nobody is good. Actually, that prince is pretty bad. Nobody comes off good because the script is so fucking terrible. I mean, it is everything they could throw into this bitch. Like from other things, like I said, but also there's like this kind of like Hamilton-esque like raps for the like announcements, like when they were announcing the change of the guard and the ball to the town. That felt like it was completely thrown in. But not only that, but there's also a choir randomly at some point. It was like, what was the point of that?
Now, to make sure your nuptials are done properly and on my schedule, we shall hold a ball.
A ball?
No.
Balls are fun!
Yes!
This really does feel like some form of torture. especially when it goes on for so long. They'll be in the last little song that they're singing, and she'll stop the song just so that she can have a moment with her stepmom. It's like, just end it. Fucking end my suffering, right? It takes almost an hour to get to the ball, and then you realize, oh shit, there's an hour left. I mean, jeez. But here, it feels like the movie itself is like, oh, yo, you great, LeBron. Oh, you're so great. King James. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I call you LeBron? I meant King James. Royalty. Oh, I grovel at your feet. Like it's pretty much that for the movie, and it definitely doesn't help that he cannot act at all.
Dad, I think we're digitized. We're in the computer.
We're in the computer?
Dad.
You know I'm claustrophobic. How do we get out of here?
Dad.
Where's the elevators?
Dad.
Hey Siri, can you let us out of here, please?
I think he's acted before in like some Amy Schumer movie or something like that. I didn't see that movie, but he's terrible in this. I mean, he can't emote like at all, and then there's these emotional moments that he has to do, or even the surprised moments when he's first in the serververse, and they don't work because he can't emote. He's just not good at it. Any scene with him and his son can't act, but I chalk that up to child acting. LeBron James, voice acting, can't voice act either. Can't do any voice acting. There's very little emotion in his voice with his voice acting when he's in 2D as well. Him acting alongside real people, acting alongside CG Looney Tune characters, it's going to be bad consistently no matter what. I mean, he's just not good, and it doesn't help that the story around him isn't good either.
Listen, guys, I'm a ball player. An athlete's acting, that never goes well.
I have to spoil this. I have to. The mid-credit scene, I think it was the mid-credit scene, has Eddie and Venom. They're in some random hotel room, and then a yellow light goes off, and I immediately knew what it was. The TV comes on, and you see Tom Holland's Spider-Man. So Venom, at the very least, he's going to be in No Way Home, but he is potentially going to be in the overall MCU now. His movies don't fit the tone of the MCU. This is not Venom by any stretch of the imagination. He's probably not going to be a villain. I guess maybe he's going to be like a friend or a pal or something to Tom Holland's Spider-Man, even though he's like licking the screen when he sees him. Why is he doing that? Because it's Spider-Man. It doesn't make sense within the movie. It's because he's Spider-Man. So he kind of has to do it. It makes sense for the character. That's it. They wanted that big fan moment. Even with my worries about No Way Home and my problems with MCU Spider-Man, you don't involve this. At least have this be shitty and be on its own. And then finally, we get that payoff from Venom 2, the after credit scene, the mid credit scene or whatever in Venom 2, where we get another end credit scene. I thought he was going to be in this movie, Tom Hardy's Venom, but he wasn't. He's only here to set up, leaving part of the symbiote behind, so we can get the symbiote story and this with this version of Spider-Man, but still have Venom be in his own movie and do his own thing. It feels unnecessary. Like, why do you need 2 end credit scenes for that? It's like, okay, okay, if you say so. It's shot well. I think the cinematography is a little bit better in his other movies. The soundtrack is okay, or it's serviceable, I guess. He has this thing where he kind of has these soundtracks in his movies. He has these songs in his movies that are kind of weird in that, and kind of off-putting in a way. And then sometimes he has songs that are like really on the nose. Like there's a weird version of "Down with the Sickness" in Dawn of the Dead. There's "Where Is My Mind" as Baby Doll is getting into the insane asylum in Sucker Punch. And then in this, towards the end, "Zombie" by the Cranberries, I believe, is playing at the end. And it's like, okay. Oh, and that fire, like I've never seen a fire move like that. Not just in a, in real life, but even in a movie. The fire moves so quickly. It doesn't feel like it's spreading. It feels like it's moving. It feels like it's actively chasing Angelina Jolie. It's insanity what's going on with that fire. But there's one big thing that really upset me. There's a big reveal, and it has to do with the women that were in the settlement, like his mom and stuff like that. There's a big reveal with that. How, because everybody knows about it but him, how does that get hidden? Such a big thing nobody slips up and thinks about it in front of him, right? It doesn't make any sense. Like at first I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting, but then I'm like, there's no way. Like it irks me, it gets on my nerves with, like with Maleficent. Maleficent was evil for like one scene, the best scene in the movie. And then she's Aurora's godmother, right? She's a hero against the king who's the real villain. In this movie, the three Dalmatians in it, oh, those are the real villains, not Cruella. She would never kill dogs and use their fur to make, to make outfits, even though that's her whole character. I don't like it, man. Like either these movies are too close or they're so different that there's almost no point to them. I don't know. It doesn't work for me. She like makes a joke about killing a dog, like that it would make a nice dress or something like that, and her henchman's like, and she's like, I'm just kidding. She's not even able to be Cruella. This doesn't have to be Cruella. This could be something completely different, and it might actually work better because you don't have bullshit like that mid-credit scene, which has to do with Pongo and Perdita, the father and mother Dalmatians from the original movie. It's just irks me so much. It irks me so much. I hate it. I hate the callbacks to the other Disney movie, which you're clearly not being. They also have to do the Cruella de Vil song at some point, so they kind of squeeze it in at the end. As good as Emma Stone is, and as good as all the other actors are, and how certain things do legitimately work, there's some dialogue that I found legitimately interesting and funny. Nothing can truly save this movie from Disney mediocrity, right? This movie is mediocre. Anybody that's saying this movie is good is only really basing it on the other live action Disney remakes that we've gotten that would have been bad. Especially, we got Dumbo, Lion King, and Aladdin all in the same year. It was exhausting. That's what they were marketing the movie on. They've been marketing the fuck out of this movie too. And yeah, the rap's not good, but that's really all that Porky Pig even does. Does he even play in the game? Elmer Fudd has little things that he says, little lines. I don't remember him ever even having the ball. There's no point for these Looney Tunes even to be in this because it's 100% about other shit. And we might as well talk about that shit right now. This is not a movie. This is 100% just Warner Brothers and all their different products. It is damn near just like right out there in the open. It's almost like full on like mask off type shit where they go to the Warner Brothers lot or whatever, and they have the little proposal that what's his name, Al G or whatever, Don Cheadle's putting on for LeBron James, and he's in all these different products and in all these different properties, and he's like, look at all Warner Brothers has done. Look at all these great things of Warner Brothers. And I'm like, God damn, like is this a movie or are you trying to sell me something? It's like a proposal to me as an audience member. And that's pretty much what it is. Like when they go through all these worlds like The Matrix, Mad Max Fury Road, and all these other things, it feels like all these different products coming together to almost be advertised to you. The thing that it was reminding me of was the Emoji Movie, where they could really just go around the apps, right? To get to the cloud or whatever the fuck it was. They have the shitty ass plot with these shitty ass characters, but it's really just to like stop in all these apps so that they can sell Candy Crush and Spotify to you and YouTube and all this. It's advertisement essentially. That's it, and it feels like 100% a corporate product, and that's really what this is. They have all these different the properties or all these different Warner Brothers characters and stuff like that, Scooby Doo and stuff like that. And they're really there just to wave at you during the basketball game. You see the trailer, LeBron James is like, we gotta put a team together, almost like the MCU or some shit. That's about it. That's all they do is just sit there and wave. And not only that, the costume design, because they have these characters come in, like the Clockwork Orange, Mask, and stuff like that. It's almost like they're only there so that people can make Easter egg videos on YouTube. But regardless, because it's a nostalgic gasm all over the fucking screen. They're there, but they look like random people off the street in costumes. Not even good costumes. It looks like bad cosplay. It's embarrassing. This movie is fucking embarrassing. It really is. It really is. They have this game with this rap that comes out of nowhere. It doesn't make sense in the game. They have a game where there's essentially no rules. There's a CG Don Cheadle at one point that looks like fucking garbage. This is awful. This is the worst movie I've seen this year. It is embarrassing. It is 100% a product. I have to imagine the director had like no creative control over this. This was 100% like some kind of corporate, just a corporate made product, like made by committee almost. It doesn't really feel like a movie. It feels like them shoving things in your face, shoving their Warner Brothers, like, you know, these different products, all the different properties that they have the rights to, just shoving them down your throat real good.